All right, so here we are on, let's say, semi-blank scene. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a new scene, and we're going to be talking about the basics of Unreal Engine, right? So when you create a brand new scene and you press play, as you can see here, I have a just demo character that has a logic here, which is pretty much like a music simulation, right? But the thing is that you have to understand is how do you create those things? And that's the point of the scene, is that how do we do a deep dive into blueprints, right? So for example, how do you create a blueprint? How do you work with it? And especially if you're new to the engine, you open up here, you're going to be like, okay, what's a blueprint class, right? So let's just go ahead here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my world settings. I'm just going to go and add like a empty one here. I'm just going to add an empty game mode, just something where I can just walk around. And we're going to create a couple of blueprints here. So the first thing that you need to do is that how you create one, right? Basically, all you have to do is that you right click on the engine and you have the blueprint class, right? And then it does have a description there, which is really cool, but you can do so much with blueprints. So let's try to create a very simple blueprint that we can see on our world, and then we can start to interact with the nodes and everything, right? So we're going to create a new blueprint, and on this scene we have a bunch of selection classes, right? And you also have more classes, and you have a bunch of items here that we're not going to cover here, of course, because there's too many, but it's important to know beforehand what kind of blueprint do you want to implement, right? So for example, if you're creating an RPG game, or if you're trying to create an interaction, right? So for example, usually when you're walking on the world, right, what you have to use is a pawn, which is something that you can possess. And the things that you interact with, for example, let's say you're trying to equip a weapon, the weapon itself will be an actor, right? Because the pawn gets the actor. So it's important to know beforehand how to do those interactions. And that's what we're going to be doing on this one. And if you go back here to the editor, we have here a couple of lists. So we have an actor, object can be placed or spawned into the world. This is a very generic description, but that's true. Like, it's something that you can just place anywhere, and then it will start to behave and do a certain action. The pawn is something that can be possessed. It means that you can play with it, right? Then a character is usually a type of a pawn, but it has the ability to walk around. So you can actually create a pawn and add all the character things. So what I recommend is that if you're creating, for example, imagine that you're trying to create a spaceship, right? Or you're trying to create, let's say, a space game. What you can actually do here is that you can use a pawn, and when your character calls your spaceship, which happens on No Man's Sky, you're calling this actor that can be possessed, in this case by AI, and then he walks towards the character, right? Now, if you go back here, there's two more things that I want to show, which are very important. We have a player controller, which is basically something that allows you, the player, to control your character inside the world. And this is something that we're going to be using a lot, not only here, but you see used a lot in many games. We also have a game mode base, which this is very important. Imagine that you have implementation, or you're trying to build a card game, or you're trying to build an RTS, and you switch between the menu and the main world. So you use a game mode base. And then we have an actor component. And this is something that we're going to be also covering during this series. So just make sure you learn all the differences for now. We don't need to worry about scene components at the moment, because this is something that we only use on the scene. It's not something we're going to be using too much. I just want you to understand the difference between those items here. And then in the next one, we're going to be able to explore one by one.